When we think of nuclear war, our minds usually jump straight to the blast, right? That giant mushroom cloud, cities just gone. But that's only the very beginning. The real, lasting horror of a nuclear war isn't just the explosion, it's the apocalypse that comes after.
We have all seen that iconic, terrifying image of the mushroom cloud. But the initial blast, as absolutely terrible as it is, it only accounts for a fraction of the total victims. So what is the real lasting danger? The one that could bring our entire civilization crashing down?
Well, the real danger is a nuclear winter. It's this sudden catastrophic shift in the climate, triggered by the war itself, that could lead to the deaths of billions. So, how in the world does a fire create winter? It sounds kind of backward, right? Well, it all kicks off the moment of detonation, when these massive firestorms set thousands and thousands of square kilometers of cities and forests on fire.
Okay, so here's how it goes down. The path to nuclear winter is basically a four-step process. First, you've got the nuclear detonations that ignite these enormous city-sized firestorms. Now, these fires are so intense, they actually create their own weather systems, forming these colossal pyrocumulonimbus clouds. You can think of them as these giant fiery thunderclouds that act like elevators, punching millions of tons of smoke and soot way up into the atmosphere, directly into the stratosphere. And once that soot is up there, it spreads out, blocking the sunlight.
And where this soot ends up is absolutely crucial: the stratosphere. See, down here where we live, in the part of the atmosphere with weather, rain would just wash all that soot out of the air in a few days or weeks. But the stratosphere is above all that. There are no rain clouds up there. So any soot that gets injected this high can just stay there for years, maybe even a decade, slowly spreading around the entire globe like a thin, dark blanket. And the sheer amount of soot we're talking about it's just staggering. In a full-scale nuclear war, scientists estimate that hundreds of these firestorms could pump up to 150 million tons of the stuff into the stratosphere. To give you some perspective, that's enough soot to form a solid cube the size of a skyscraper. Just think about that. That's the scale of planetary change we're dealing with. Okay, so now you've got a planet shrouded in this layer of soot. A lot less sunlight is reaching the ground, the world gets colder and it gets darker, and this is where the second stage catastrophe really begins: the complete and total collapse of our ability to feed ourselves. Our entire global civilization, everything we've built, is based on the predictable, stable climate we have now. We know when to plant our crops, we know when to harvest, and we have a pretty good idea of where rain is going to fall. A nuclear winter throws all of that into absolute chaos, almost overnight. Summers become way shorter and colder, or they might just not happen at all. Global rainfall patterns get completely disrupted, leading to widespread droughts. The growing seasons, the very foundation of our food supply, they would simply collapse. And the impact is worst right where it matters the most: the regions that feed humanity, the places we call breadbaskets, like the Great Plains in the US or Ukraine. They're all concentrated in the mid-latitudes of the Northern Hemisphere. In a major nuclear winter scenario, temperatures in these vital areas would probably stay below freezing for several years. Nothing could grow. The world's breadbaskets would just turn empty. This chart really shows just how devastating the impact would be. Even a regional nuclear war, one that feels far away, could cut global calorie production nearly in half. And in a full-scale global war, calorie production would plummet by a shocking 90%. Now, humanity only has a few weeks' worth of food in storage globally. So when 9 out of every 10 calories on the planet just disappear, mass starvation isn't a risk. It's a mathematical certainty. And the climate isn't even the only problem. Modern agriculture is a huge industrial process. It depends on fuel for tractors, on industrially produced fertilizers, and on a global supply chain for spare parts. In a major war, the refineries, the ports, and the factories that support this whole system would be destroyed. So even if the climate somehow recovered, our ability to farm at scale would still be completely crippled. Now, this isn't just some abstract thought experiment. Researchers have actually applied all this science to plausible, real-world conflicts to really understand what the consequences would be. So let's take a look at 2 of the most studied scenarios. Just take a second and really look at these numbers. In a large-scale war between India and Pakistan, 100 million people could die pretty much instantly from the blasts and the fires. But the nuclear winter and famine that follows could kill up to 2 billion people all around the world. Now look at a global war between NATO and Russia. 360 million immediate deaths, followed by up to 5 billion deaths from starvation. The crucial point here is this. The vast majority of casualties will be people thousands of miles from any explosion who die simply because the sun has been blocked out. So let's put it all together. What is the final toll of a large-scale nuclear war? Well, for most of humanity, it would be a completely unsurvivable future. 90%. That's the estimated drop in the world's ability to produce food. It is a collapse from which there is no immediate recovery. And the result? 5 billion people dead from hunger in just a couple of years. It's a number so vast, it's almost impossible to really comprehend what that loss would mean for our species. So, is anywhere safe? Well, not really. But a few isolated nations in the southern hemisphere, like Australia or New Zealand, they might fare a little better. The nuclear winter would be milder there, and they have agricultural systems that aren't as dependent on annual crops. They would probably survive by hoarding their own food, but it would be a very grim existence in a collapsed world. And that brings us to the final, haunting question. For that small fraction of humanity that might survive in this scarred new world, surrounded by the graves of billions, after seeing what these weapons truly do, not just to cities but to the planet itself, would they ever make the same mistake again?